Hello, friends. Today we're going to be talking about an exalted Sun in the sign of Aries making a square to an exalted Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. And this square will perfect on April 5th and it will continue until the 11th as they get out of that 5-degree orb. And let's start here. There are these moments in our lives where we want to move forward with a lot of force. These are the moments when we feel ready to act, ready to decide, and ready to direct our lives forward. These are the moments when we feel like our will feels like a blade, it's sharp. Our sense of self feels clear to us, and the need for action feels immediate. And yet, in that same very moment, we might feel like something within us is lagging behind. We know that something within us hasn't expanded enough to meet what the moment is asking for. And this is the dialogue of tension between Sun and Jupiter at this moment. And if we pay attention, the self of us is not feeling passive right now. There's something in us that we don't want to sit and wait anymore. In this moment, we want to initiate, we want to declare, and choose our direction in life. And yet, there's something about our inner world, our inner landscape that can't accommodate this right now. It can't sustain what it is that we want to commence. There is something that is still in the process of becoming. So what's emerging right now is a lot of tension. We're feeling the tension between two kinds of growth. One, which is our external movements in the world, and the other is the capacity, our inner capacity to be able to hold that external movement. So this square is bringing us into a dialogue, is capturing our attention to understand what this discrepancy is about. And to understand this dialogue right now, we have to go through the layers of the video. But before going there, I just want to say we have officially moved into the month of April, and there's a lineup of videos coming up for the transits this month, especially the heavy duty transits in the sign of Aries. A lot is going to be coming out of that sign. So if you want to catch those videos and more, please do remember to subscribe and press that notification bell so YouTube notifies you when those videos are released. And now let's just take a moment to examine the nature of Sun in Aries and Jupiter in the sign of Cancer so we can start to understand the dynamic of this square. And we really have to understand the layers because in planetary friendships, Jupiter and Sun are very good friends. It's like having the king and the wise grand advisor to the king. So what is it that they're having a discussion about that is of a square, of a conflict and a tension? So the first layer we have to understand, Sun in Aries, that exaltation, carries a specific orientation towards existence, towards existing. And we also have to remember the nature of the Sun, which is a masculine planet in a fiery sign as well, and in a sign that is cardinal. So it's trying to direct us to a new movement, new direction of life. So this Sun right now wants to initiate, because it is in a masculine sign and itself is of the masculine principle, is about externalizing the self. This Sun wants to direct life and it wants to be the commander in chief. And the Sun represents the self. So this is how we're situated right now. This is how we're feeling ourselves. And we got to remember, especially in the sign of Aries, the Sun acts without hesitation. And that's because the Sun recognizes itself as the center where all action emanates from. So this is the ability within us to say, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm choosing. And this is how I'm going to move forward. There's a sense of clarity here, the way the path is lit for us. And there's no fragmentation here because the will is resolute and it's concentrated. And the sign of Aries being a fire sign, a very dharmic sign, there's a sense of purpose here, and there's also a destination that we're trying to arrive to. But now let's take Jupiter into consideration. Jupiter in Cancer is in a water sign. It's in a feminine sign. And Jupiter itself is not exactly Mr. Hyper-masculine. But what the sign of Cancer has in common with Aries, it is also a cardinal sign. But this cardinality of Cancer is not like Aries that wants to direct us outwardly. This Cancer, the cardinality of it wants us to go into the depth of our inner world. Its orientation is inwards. It's forcing Jupiter to also be inwards. So this Jupiter, since last year when it arrived into this sign, it's been augmenting and expanding our inner world and inner landscape. It's deepening what it is that is held within. It's making more space within us. to be able to hold and to contain more. So this Jupiter within us has been gathering all of our experiences, all of the meaning that we have accumulated over a lifetime, all the memories that are held within, all of the emotional substance. And it's been rearranging them while at the same time expanding the inner space that holds all of these. And it's been doing this so that it can create a greater sense of coherence. Like Jupiter represents philosophy, systems of knowledge. Jupiter has a lot to do with systemization. I talked about this extensively in that Jupiter video when Jupiter goes direct. So unlike the sun and the sign of Aries, where Aries is so concerned with speed and expediency, this Jupiter is concerned with the depth of things, with the breadth of things, with the extent of things. And it wants to create a sense of integrity to that depth. So this Jupiter is forcing us right now to reflect and to ask questions like, what do I understand? What am I holding within? What truly has meaning in my life that is sustaining me and everything around me? This Jupiter wants us to understand our inner landscape, how we've arrived to this point. Why do we have this understanding of life? So while the sign of Aries is trying to initiate a new direction, that Jupiter in Cancer right now is determining whether if that direction can be supported, if we can live in it, if we can sustain it. And just by understanding this difference in terms of their orientation and what it is that they're doing in this moment, we can begin to understand what this tense dialogue between them is about, which we call a square dialogue. So let's just take a minute to examine what a square is in this case. In general, a square is creating tension between two planets. We're talking about a 90-degree angle. So imagine your car is going this way, the other car is coming this way. We're going to have a T-bone. We need to figure this problem out. Squares generally create a problem for us where it captures our attention and we do have to go to a problem-solving mode. It wants us to consciously work through something. So if you have a square in your chart, there's a soul dilemma that you're supposed to figure out in this life. And ultimately, it can make you super sharp, super aware and conscious of something in life that otherwise you would have taken it for granted. So it's not easy, but it's necessary for our growth. And with this square, the sun within us wants to push forward. It's acting as if the path is already in front of it and all it has to do is move forward. It's assuming that movement itself will generate what it is that we need in this life. And you know what? From the position of the sun, from its perspective, this is true. And that's because Aries understands life through action. Aries doesn't sit there and contemplate. It acts in order to understand the experience. And from that understanding, it understands its own position in life. So the sun in Aries understands itself through doing. But the Jupiter within us is responding from a completely different level. Jupiter is evaluating whether our world or inner world has expanded enough. Is it big enough to sustain what the sun is trying to initiate? It's about measuring our capacity right now. So the Jupiter within us is looking at the sun within us, the self of ourselves, and it's asking, this direction that you want to initiate, can you actually hold it long term? Can this be something that's lived over time? Do you really think that your inner world has the proper coherence to support this new direction? So what we're getting out of this conversation is something like this. The sun is saying to Jupiter, look, I'm just going to move forward. And in that forward movement, I need to experience my becoming. And Jupiter is looking at the sun and is like, okay, fine. But you first need to expand your inner self so that what it is that you're becoming, you can actually endure it. And you know, this tension's emerging because this is happening all at the same time. The external facet of our lives wants to move forward, and the internal space has to be expanded simultaneously. And I would say, because the sun has more power over Jupiter right now, because the sun is behind Jupiter and is overcoming Jupiter, the sun's actually in the right. We do need to act in this moment. Action is exactly what we need. And that's because it is our action that forces our inner world to grow. But our actions right now, because the inner world can accommodate it, our actions are exposing our inner limit. It's showing us the limited capacity that we have within. So we're starting to see, oh my God, I have to actually evolve this inner self, this inner world, to be able to support how it is I want to move out in the world. And you can think of this like an athlete with its coach. The sun here is the athlete, Jupiter is like the coach. So the coach is trying to teach the sun some sort of athletic movement. Like you're in Cirque du Soleil, they do the craziest things. And then the sun in you attempts to do that move, but your body cannot execute it. And that's because our nervous system hasn't fully integrated that pattern of motion and movement yet. The coordination is not there. The strength is not there. And if you really want to learn that move and to perform it, you can't stop there, right? You have to constantly engage with it over and over until the body can hold it, repeat it, and sustain that movement. And this is exactly what the square is asking us to do or to understand. It's asking us to keep moving while we're becoming capable of holding that movement. And this is why we also need to talk about the shadows of the square, because this is also where we begin to see where action exceeds integration. And what happens when the inner world can't keep up with the ways that we keep pushing and forcing our way through life externally. There's a high price to be paid for that. So let's just take a few moments to go over the shadows of this square. And then after that, we'll go through the life lessons, which are the more positive aspects. And I want to start here. The shadow is not necessarily coming from our lack of awareness. And that's because Jupiter has already been in Cancer for almost a year. Like we have turned our internal world upside down. We have grappled with memories, emotions from like 30 years ago, for crying out loud. We're aware of our internal landscape in this moment. And Jupiter has been expanding it for the past year. It's been building our understanding. It's been shaping a deeper sense of what matters to us. We have a better understanding of how we need to live our life, what's meaningful to us, and how it is that we have to sustain certain aspects of our lives that is positive. So at this stage, we know. And we also know what needs to change. We know what we need to act on. But the problem right now, we don't exactly know how to live our knowing. We know, but we don't know how to perform the actions of it. And this is where the shadows can emerge. And that's because the sun in Aries is coming in with tremendous amount of force. It's coming with clarity. It's declaring itself. It has a sense of direction. And it's saying that I'm dedicated. No matter what you say, I'm going forward with this. So we're going to act and we're going to see that, oh my God, I'm keep falling short. I'm coming short. And not in theory, but in actual execution of things. So this is where the gap becomes visible immediately and forcefully. The gap between what we know and what it is that we can actually embody. And this can show up as us keep attempting to move forward, but not being able to sustain it. So you tell yourself, you know what? I need to live a healthier lifestyle. My health is deteriorating. I'm going to start from tomorrow. You start tomorrow morning, but by 4 p.m., you can't follow through. So we're making the right decision, but the follow through and the consistency is not coming through. We're initiating what's aligned and what's right, but we keep collapsing back into our previous patterns. We can also see this in relationships. You're with someone that you know they're not right for you. The best thing to do for both your lives is to actually move on, but you can't stick to it. Something happens where you just go back to your old patterns of being with that person and coping. And that's because the self hasn't been fully conditioned to live what it now knows. This is like the athlete analogy I was giving earlier. This is like you watching someone doing that movement, and in your head, you're like, I know exactly how this is done. This can't be that hard. Like you're understanding the form of it, the timing of it, the rhythm of it, the sequences of movement. But when you attempt it, the body can't execute it. Like you can't even get your leg off the ground. So the signal is there. The intention is correct, but the system can't hold it yet. So what we get here over time is repeated effort, but without the ability to integrate it and to seamlessly just be it and perform it. And to state the obvious, creates tremendous amount of frustration in us human beings. Like we do something twice and we expect to now just be it and to know it. And the shadow emerges right here because we tend to split in this moment. It's an internal split because this is us knowing what's right, but experience itself can't live up to that knowing. And this will ultimately affect how we relate to ourselves, our own inner world, and the external world. All of it gets affected. And that's because every time we try and we fail, we register that as failure, as the self of us failing, and we start to embody that failure after a while. And if we embody our failure, our sense of being and becoming becomes a failure. So over time, this leads to a lack of self-trust, trust in the world, trust in others, trust in our goals. This is how we become passive agents in the world, and we become very content with just what's happening in my inner world. There's a reason why, as human beings, we have 2 hands, we have 2 legs, we have all of this sensory system. We are this input-output system. We are supposed to engage with the world, take our interiority, bring it out into the external world, interact with it, and take it back within. This is the cycle of human life. So to get to a point that you don't want to engage anymore externally, this is devastating to life. So the shadow is coming from withdrawing now from all kinds of actions. We stop making an attempt. And as, again, to mention, as this gap grows bigger and bigger between the internal world and the external world, and we can't bridge it, we'll eternally be stuck in this phase of refining, understanding, and feeling things out. This is our inability to step inside of action, which is the exact thing that's needed to change the system, to condition it to be otherwise, to feel otherwise. So here we just have partial growth. We're growing internally, but this internal growth has no application. So as you can see, this square is not so much about being confused in this moment. It's about our ability right now to confront something. It's about the world's existence showing us that there's a gap between what you know and what you can do. And because both of these planets are exalted, that means they're super powerful. This process is very much intensified. And that means the push for us to act is very strong. And knowing what is required for us to act is super strong. So in reality, this gap can't be ignored. Like no matter where we turn to, every time we want to go in the inner worlds, we see the gap. Every time we just want to blindly act, we see the gap. We're constantly seeing how we're falling short either internally or externally. And this is precisely the point of this square. And considering they're both exalted, this is supposed to feel big, very noticeable. It's not supposed to reduce the tension. This square wants to make the gap absolutely and utterly undeniable. It wants us to work through this gap. So this is a moment of engagement. We can become resigned. A lot of us will sign in our resignation a lot of times when life gets heavy and hard from acting externally. That whole Monday syndrome has a lot to do with this. It's because you know you've tried it in the past. So you just kind of like resign from trying again. This moment is saying that time cannot continue. We need to do things differently. And as I've been mentioning in so many videos now, this year has a lot to do with the elements of air and fire. There's a lot of movement. We can't be static. It's conditioning us for something that we need to engage with in this year of life and beyond. And with that said, let's go to the life lessons. So this square is teaching us how to calibrate our inner and outer movement. Something about existence right now wants our inner and outer to be a reflection of each other, not to have so many contradictions. This is the concept of when you know better, you should do better. And as I was saying earlier, Jupiter has been here for almost a year, so we do know better. So this is a time to align that knowing with how we actually perform and embody that knowing. This square is about recognizing how action and inner expansion are part of the same process within a system. We can't divorce them from each other. And this transit with the sun right now, it really wants to take us out of that reflective, contemplative, evaluative mode that we've been in, and to find corresponding actions for them. And there's a second lesson to this too, which is about self-trust. And we got to remember the sun in Aries moves because its trust is right to act. This is the sovereign, the king, and the sign of actions. So of course there is self-trust. And Jupiter in the sign of Cancer builds trust through coherence. And Jupiter itself has a lot to do with trust and belief. And when we consider Aries in the mix right now and the sun, we're talking about self-trust. So when we bring their sense of trust together and we blend them, the kind of trust that they're asking from us right now is to trust and have a sense of courage to move. And trust that we have built the depth to be able to sustain it, even though we're going to glitch out, even though a lot of times we don't know how to do it. We need to trust that eventually we can. But at the same time, Jupiter is bringing its sense of wisdom here too. So it wants us to understand how much force we're applying in this forward movement that we're trusting. It wants us to understand how much of it, so internally things don't break. And Jupiter is saying, dude, I'm not coming back here for another 12 years. So you break things is on you. But beyond all jokes, they're working together, even though there's a lot of tension here. Like if we listen and if we're self-aware, we'll see what our limit is right now. Saturn's in the sign of Aries too, right? So we can keep pushing, we can keep retrying, pause, rest as needed. But the whole point is to come back to it and not to break the system either. So in a lot of ways, this square is also saying that we are now in a process of refining our discernment and judgment as well. And as this is going on right now, we're assessing our power of discernment because that Mercury is also trining that Jupiter. Jupiter is also imparting some wisdom about the power of discernment, even in the most distorted situations, because Mercury is debilitated in the sign of Pisces. And these aren't abstract types of discernments. The dynamic between Cancer and Aries right now is talking about lived experience and lived discernment. Now, this brings us to the next lesson, which is about relational balance. And I'm saying relational, you're like, well, there's no Mercury or Venus here. Why is it becoming relational? Is because we're talking about the dynamic between the masculine and the feminine. So the sign of Cancer is a feminine sign. The sign of Aries is a super masculine sign. Aries is about how we initiate. Cancer is about how we receive, the degree of our receptivity. Aries directs outwards. Cancer brings in and integrates. So this square is also teaching us when is it time to lead and when is it time to actually absorb. In other words, when to act and when to reflect. And we got to remember, because both of them are a cardinal sign, we're not talking about passive learning. This is about active reorientation. And that means we have to understand how life needs to be redirected and reorganized right now. And this reorganization is about having more coherent relationships between what we pursue externally and what our inner world is about. I just want to say, when you think about this, it's actually a very beautiful representation of that occult saying, that concept of as above, so below. So we have our inner worlds and our actions is what's happening externally and out in the world. What we're supposed to do right now is to have correspondence, this fluidity of the internal to the external, from the external into the internal. That felt very strange doing this, but it feels good. Okay, moving on. And now we're getting to the end of this video, but before closing, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe, and please comment. Let me know how you're feeling this gap. Where in your life is this discrepancy showing up between action and inner sense of being? That gap between your inner knowing and how you actually need to move through your days. What kind of an athlete are you right now? What are you training for in this life? What challenges do you face in closing these gaps and making it very seamless? What is your inner mandate, your soul's mandate, and what kind of actions does it require? Let me know. I'd love to know. Let us all know. We can all learn from each other. This is a way to know how one single transit with its single theme can manifest in many different lives in many different ways. And if you want a reading of this transit or just to understand your birth charts, why have you gone through what you've gone through? How have you arrived here? What is the meaning of all this? And what is the path forward? You can go to my website for more information at parisayazdi.com, or you can go to the description box below. I have my email there if you want to directly contact me. You can also find many articles on my website, as well as other things that are posted there. Now, let us close. So what this square is bringing to us is not just tension. It's bringing us closer to this concept of responsibility, which we're really going to see it once when the sun steps into Taurus. And that's because right now, we know something within us has changed. The shape of our inner landscape has changed. There's a lot that we understand relative to last year, right before when Jupiter stepped into Cancer. And we can feel that our inner self is asking us something for more. We can see that life is not meeting us where we used to be. It wants us to move to a different kind of a path. There's a new becoming on the horizon, and we have to align ourselves to that. And this is always the case in life. And when I was like in my 20s, I thought by the time I get to my late 30s, this becoming process is done. It's never done. There's always something on the horizon. And there are moments in life that it becomes so intense. It's like prominently, distinctly in front of us. This is one of those moments. And this moment's also indicating that things ahead are different than how they've been. It's showing us how from this point forward, what we choose to do will carry a different kind of weight. It's that our actions can't just be attempts anymore. They have to now respond to this thing that we know internally that is our truth, that is the truth of the self. It has to match our knowing. And because of that, now every time we come to move, every time that we act, we'll feel it. We'll feel when it's aligned and when it's not aligned, meaning our actions align to our inner knowing. And through action, we'll come to see what it is that we have the capacity to hold right now and what we cannot, and we still have to work on it. And this square is also saying that I'm bringing this sensitivity forth and you can no longer undo it. You can't brush it under the rug anymore. So this square is not just refining our movement. It's refining our relationship to our knowing. We have to respect our knowing. This is something that we often don't. We know something, like we know this thing's bad for me. We know this person's bad for me. We know we should not put ourselves in that situation, but we don't respect our knowing. Right now, there are consequences for that. So we're understanding what the refinement of this relationship between knowing and doing is about. And so much of the inner torment comes from us knowing internally how we should locate and position ourselves within the world, how we should act, where we should be, where we should not be, because we know it and we don't actually respect that part of our knowing. This transit is making this very painful. And this is a good kind of pain because this adjustment and this alignment of action to what one knows sets us free in a lot of ways. And I want you to know the sign of Cancer has a lot to do with moksha. And the sign of Aries has a lot to do with dharma. So if you're living your purpose, if you're living your sense of inner mandate, you are liberated. You do have that moksha. This is what this tension's bringing forth. It ultimately wants to set us free. And we have to understand this is not something like we know something, therefore we act upon it. No, in life, it requires a lot of repetition. And I don't think it's a mistake right now that virtually all the planets are going to go through the sign of Aries. Every aspect of us is being tested in terms of Jupiter is going to stay a constant in the sign of Cancer. Every planet is going through the sign of action. Do your actions of your intellect, such as Mercury, match? Your actions, such as your initiative, Mars. Right now, your sense of self through the sun. All of it is going through this refinement. So we're going to keep on repeating this. And through effort, returning to it again and again, we come to understand how to align our action to our knowing. And we'll notice that through action, our knowing is also getting refined. We'll come to understand that they are not separate things. They are existing on a continuum and they're constantly informing each other. And just as a side note, before ending this video, I was watching the moon launch, Artemis 2, where we just sent a space shuttle to go and orbit around the moon. And I was thinking about humanity in some ways. Look at this. We have a rocket. We stuck a few people in it. We're sending it to outer space to understand more about our own existence in this vast universe. Here's the same technology that we strap onto planes and then bomb each other and kill each other. Talk about the gap of knowing and doing. We're seeing it in real life in so many different ways. When I was talking about the same narrative, the same theme, manifesting in multitude of ways, there's an example of it on the global stage right now. But I have talked too much for this video. I do have a wish for us before ending this video. And my wish is that we remain with what we know, to meet our knowing through our actions, and to do it again and again until our life can finally hold the truth, which is the alignment of what we hold internally and what it is that we do externally. And that's it for today. Sending you much love. Till next time.